Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our presentation today. So today we're going to be presenting on the concept of visible thinking, and we hope that you find our presentation to be extremely valuable and that hopefully some of the tools and strategies that we discuss can then be successfully implemented into your own teaching environment. So our presentation today is going to be presented by Gemma, Emma, and myself, Brianna. So before we start our presentation today on visible thinking, let's first find out what you think you already know and what you want to learn. So we're going to do everyone's favourite, a KWL chart. As you can see, it will be constructed on the whiteboard. We'll use whiteboard markers and write it up. And then what we want you to do is on the pink post-it note that is in front of you, we want you to write something that you know about visible thinking. So it could be what you think it means or how it could be used within the classroom. And then on the blue sticky note, we'd like you to write something that you want to know. So whether that could be how visible thinking could be used in your personal learning area or something along those lines. So we're going to give you 2 minutes to complete that task. So we want to have something that you know and something that you want to learn. And then once those 2 minutes are up, we're going to ask you to come up to the whiteboard and put your sticky notes under the appropriate heading. So either know or want to know. So we'll give you 2 minutes to do that now. So we now know what you know or what you think you know about visible thinking and also the things that you want to find out throughout our presentation. So now let's have a look at what the literature and the research actually says about visible thinking. So the concept of visible thinking began as an initiative to develop a research-based approach to teaching thinking dispositions or ways of thinking to students. This approach was based on 3 core practices. So those were thinking routines, the documentation of student thinking, and also reflective professional practice. The concept was first developed in Sweden as part of the Innovating with Intelligence project, which had an aim to develop students' thinking dispositions in areas such as truth-seeking, understanding, fairness, and imagination. Since its origin, the concept has expanded its focus into various other areas, such as thinking through the arts and also the role of cultural forces. The concept of visual thinking was also explored by Project Zero. So Project Zero is a mission that was founded by Nelson Goodman at the Harvard Graduate School of Education in 1967. The project began through having a focus on understanding learning in and through the arts. And this project continues today to explore visible thinking among many other concepts and approaches into learning. Okay, so we now know a brief history about visible thinking, but what does it actually mean and how can it be applied within the classroom? So essentially, at its core, visible thinking is recognised as incorporating practices that do exactly that. So they make learning visible. It's about incorporating thinking routines that help to loosely guide learners' thought processes and also encourage active thinking. So the purpose of incorporating visible thinking into the classroom is to essentially help learners to become better thinkers. Okay, so visible thinking is about applying thinking routines. What does it mean by a thinking routine? What is that? So thinking routines in general are simple structures, for example, a set of questions or a short sequence of steps that could be used by individuals or in a group setting. So these routines or structures are designed to be easy to remember. They are also considered to be practical, and in their use they encourage a broad range of thinking moves. They are also considered to, at times, enhance collaborative thinking, and also they are able to be used across a variety of learning areas and contexts, so different subject areas and also different content areas within a subject. At times they are said to be simple in nature. However, it is this simplicity that enables students to be able to apply them and remember them successfully. So the purpose of thinking routines is to promote a deeper understanding of the content that a student is being taught, and they also help students understand how they think and learn themselves. Or in other words, thinking routines assist students to understand how to think more so than what to think. So visible thinking in particular is extremely beneficial to not only students but also teachers. So teachers are let in or provided with an insight into how students think and learn through the eye of the student. Also is beneficial to the student themselves as they can see how teachers and students think. So often the processes that other students partake in order to reach a conclusion or an answer to a question are often left invisible in a sense. So therefore, through making thinking processes visible, students are therefore let into the secret of how others think and learn, and therefore how peers can reason their responses.
Visible thinking and student learning. So our article suggests that it is difficult to argue against classroom practices which ask students to think, but what about asking students to think visibly? So this is interesting because what exactly does thinking look like? So I'd just like to grab your ideas on this question as well. Yeah, so the fact is that thinking is mostly done invisibly. So we as educators need to work to make it visible in our classroom for a range of different purposes, which I'll discuss in a bit. Just quickly, I would like you to stand up if you agree that visible thinking may improve student learning, or remain seated if you do not. Yeah, so I just want to know why or why not you think this. So the first benefit of visible thinking expressed in our article was that it showcases a powerful view of knowledge. So what is knowledge? Knowledge is a continuous thing that's kind of ongoing, so it can't be represented by the orderly or something that's simplistic. So this is where brainstorms come in, and students can start with one idea and then continuously build it up, because that's how knowledge grows and changes. It's not just static, it doesn't stay still. So brainstorms are examples of visual representations which allow for ongoing annotations, revisions, and additions. So as I just said, students need visible thinking strategies to process their information and kind of take out the best ideas to formulate responses to essay questions or something like that. They just need something that allows them to think visibly. So by thinking visibly, students can identify key relationships between claims and evidence, facts and knowledge, uncertainties and certainties. And this can be made visually. So again, this is really good for visual learners, differentiating for them. And it really builds an authentic sense of knowledge instead of a memorization of facts. So again, with brainstorms, it asks students to start with an idea and then build on it and learn as they go, rather than just remembering or listing facts that they need to kind of sit a test or something like that. The second benefit of visible thinking is that visible thinking demonstrates the power of intellectual collaboration. So as you'll see in our presentation today, visible thinking strategies often ask students to work with a partner or share their ideas within small groups and eventually to the class. So this benefit can be broken up into two important characteristics. The first being that there is an emphasis of student ideas and questions, which will enhance participation. So essentially what this means is that because students have come up with their own ideas and questions through visible thinking strategies, they'll be more engaged in the topic and the discussions because they'll have something to say. So this is very helpful when you have students who tend to not participate in class, because they'll feel like they have something to say and therefore they'll want to voice in discussions and they'll speak up in these activities. And the second characteristic is that these strategies illustrate a collaborative conceptual take on a topic that is broader than an individual's conception. So because students are intellectually collaborating with their peers, they can gauge a broader knowledge on a particular idea or concept. So it's not just what they think, they're taking into account what their peers think, and they're building up this broader knowledge, and then they can take that with them and they can understand the subject a bit better. Lastly, the third benefit mentioned in that article is that visible thinking changes the classroom culture. So the mood in the classroom becomes more palpable because the displays of students' thoughts and questions, the visible representations of their developing ideas, and the tone of interaction in the classroom creates the message that thinking is highly valued. So the classroom culture becomes one that values learning, and therefore students want to engage with this learning, and they're encouraged to do so because their thought processes are represented visibly around the classroom. These displays also create a culture which allows for students to express and explain their ideas in a number of ways. So in classroom discussions, chalk talks, brainstorms, there's a whole range of strategies that we'll talk about later in this presentation. And these basically work to assist students in becoming more active, curious, and engaged learners. So how does visible thinking express the umbrella topics? So we all know that the three umbrella topics are 21st century learners, differentiation, and reflective practice. So I just want to put this question out to you guys as well. How do you think visible thinking demonstrates these three umbrella topics? Yep, so personally I think that it kind of interacts with all three, so it has the capacity to anyway. So the 4 C's of 21st century learning are listed above. So critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. So a lot of visible thinking activities ask students to critically think because they're looking at their own thinking process and they're actually pinpointing different parts of it and making this visible. So it is a difficult task for them to kind of break down how they know what they know. So students can do this by collaborating with their peers, which a lot of visible thinking strategies also ask students to do. So for instance, I'm going to get you guys to do a chalk talk later, and this can be done as a class or like in small groups, perhaps with a partner. And then also 3, communication. So these visible thinking strategies become forms of communication because students are making their invisible thinking process visible to the teacher. They're communicating what they know and how they have gotten there. So it's kind of a journey from where they started to where they are now. And students can do this creatively. So chalk talks can be as creative as students may like. There's also different visible thinking strategies which express creativity of students. The second umbrella topic was differentiation. So I think that visible thinking kind of leads itself towards visual thinkers. So it is very useful for visual thinkers to kind of write down what they know and make it visible. So it's really great for them, and it's great for students who aren't visual learners to kind of get an array of different strategies so that they don't become bored and like in a routine of the same strategies all the time. And then 3, reflective practice. So visible thinking promotes reflective practice because it is a great form of a diagnostic assessment. So students can just write down their ideas and the teacher can pinpoint exactly where the students' weaknesses and strengths are and where they need to intervene. So this stimulates reflective practice by the teacher because the teacher can then work on what they may have not taught as well as what they have taught other areas. So they can look for alternative forms of communication to teach particular concepts that students are struggling with.